Shall we start?
Yeah, whenever you're ready.
All right.
Do you want to cue you in?
Greetings and fist bumps. This is the Raised Eyebrow Podcast, where we discuss how people just peopling can make it weird to be a person sometimes. But somebody's got to do it. And we are your hosts, Kojo, Alex, and Mike. And in this episode, we look at Hollywood's pandemic training failure. Let's break it down for you, shall we? In other words, there's a Hollywood movie about how to handle most threats to humanity. But when it comes to pandemics, there's like 2, and only 12 people have seen them. So fellas, let me ask you this. How is it that if we had a zombie breakout or Godzilla started roaming the streets, everyone and their grandmother would know exactly what to do? But with the pandemic, which is actually real life, Hollywood has taught us nothing.
Yeah, totally. Look, Hollywood, you had one job. Okay, well, I guess 2 jobs. First is to entertain us, and yeah, sure, job done there. But second is that you need to prepare us for the inevitable. Pandemics, zombies, aliens, robots taking over. What would happen if the Toronto Maple Leafs actually won the Stanley Cup? You know, important stuff.
But yes, to your point, we need more pandemic films. Right now, even though we're in the midst of a pandemic, most people can't even name more than one film.
Well, I think viruses are invisible enemies. It's kind of hard to kill COVID with a shotgun. Although if we could, this pandemic would have been over in a week. Like Texas would be back to normal within a few hours.
Yeah, if Resident Evil has taught me anything, I'd pack a 12 gauge.
So for those of you who haven't seen it, Contagion is actually the most popular, or I guess the most well-known pandemic film. Just some facts off of Wikipedia. They would never lie to us. It actually came out in 2011, and back then it didn't get a great critical response. Exactly 5 people watched it. Then COVID showed up, and everyone watched it. In fact, Contagion became the most viewed film for 2 weeks straight, and it had an increase of 5,600% in January of 2020 compared to the previous month.
The pandemic that was depicted in the film was close to what we were all about to experience. It was like how-to guide for everyone. We watched it because this is what we were all in for.
But why did more people watch it? It has Matt Damon, Kate Winslet, Jude Law, Lawrence Fishburne, and Gwyneth Paltrow. Any other movie with a cast like this would be gunning for an Oscar. So what does this say about us that we didn't want to watch a movie about viruses even though it had a cast like this?
It has Morpheus. Morpheus!
What?
and still no one watched it. And everyone did, eventually.
Yeah, it was a good film, kind of. Not really, though. I mean, like, with all these other disaster films, you always have, like, this big epic thing, and, it, you know, especially with, like, zombies and, you know, Godzilla or aliens, like, there's always something to shoot, something to blow up. You know, but even, like, movies like Armageddon or Deep Impact or something like that, where you have these asteroids, you know, coming towards Earth. The asteroid is always just, like, this big scary thing that takes place in the background, but it's never really... Those movies always suck. With these types of movies, like, we need a good villain on screen in order to make people, like, actually care about it to the point where they're actually going to think about how they would survive a pandemic to the same level that they would actually survive a zombie outbreak. Like, I know how I would survive a zombie outbreak, what I would do the first thing, you know? Pretty sure everybody would.
Yeah, because you've seen all the zombie movies.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Go to your local hardware
Walking
store.
Dead.
Yeah, you've seen. How many seasons has everyone seen of Walking Dead?
You find an island, right? Because that way zombies can't swim, right? There's never been a movie that demonstrates that zombies can swim. So you always go to an island. That's where everyone congregates and to be safe, right? You don't go to, like, the forest or some building or something like that. You go to an island, right? That way you can live in relative safety.
Like, they've made every type of zombie. They've made the zombie that runs fast. They've made the zombie that's stupid. They made the smarter zombies, you know, and we were able to figure it out. With pandemics, like you had Contagion, which similar to what we're dealing with, but not really. And then you had Outbreak from, like, the 90s with Dustin Hoffman. Nobody saw that one. But that's it. That's off the top of my head.
Apparently there are a bunch more. Like, So I Googled this thing, like, best pandemic films. So you have Train to Busan, which apparently is a pandemic film, South Korean.
Okay.
28 Days Later. Outbreak called the Rage Virus. Contagion, we spoke about that. And then they have ones like World War Z and I Am Legend. Those are basically just zombie movies masquerading as the pandemic films. so I don't really count those. Outbreak, yeah, that's the one you said. It has Morgan Freeman, Dustin Hoffman, Cuba Gooding Jr.
Good cast again.
Yeah, no, like they have good casts. We deal with viruses all the time. Like in normal times, there's always the flu, the cold. You know, we always hear stuff like Ebola and Zika, and going back to like SARS and stuff like that. I think we just live with it constantly. That it's not really like this extreme other that we have to envision. It's just kind of like it is what it is. And even if you look at a lot of narrative happening right now, it's always like, well, this is just, even as the virus evolves, it's like, well, it's not as strong as it used to be, or people are getting used to it to the point where they're just done with it, even though it still rages on.
Yeah. I wonder if new film, like our new scripts being written now, right? It always takes a couple of years for a Hollywood film to come out after something happens in the world. Like, I don't know, 9/11 is an example.
Yeah.
How many 9/11 films came out like 10 years after 9/11, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
This whole slew of them, yeah. One for everything. There's one about the plane, one with Nicolas Cage. Probably like 3 with Nicolas Cage.
A few firefighter ones. I don't remember the name. Apologies.
Yeah. So what do you guys think? Like, because most of the movies tend to be more of like nothing as to be something for educational. So if we're to educate, how do you educate? It's like you're giving them something to entertain them with a pill. Like, how do you tell them to do something?
Like it's like the old like storytelling devices where like you have like a love story, someone's grandmother gets sick in a pandemic, or people fall in love trying to care for people, like
Right.
Like it's how they used to tell war stories, right? Like or Titanic, that's a good example. Like, how do you tell the story of a ship sinking? Like, it's an interesting story, but like really, who cares, right? You take Leo, who is handsome, and Kate Winslet, who is good looking, and you tell a story of a rich girl meets young poor guy, and they fall in love and try to survive this disaster. And it's like historical, so like you have people always like looking at different points in time where events took place, because like where we are now is kind of boring. Nobody likes to see their present lifestyle.
You can hype it up a bit. Because it's present, we might think of it as boring, but we can kind of hype it up, add some interesting, fun, futuristic gadgets and stuff.
Yeah, it could be like set 5 years in the future on like Wave 26.
That'd be interesting. Someone's writing that script right now.
Probably. Yeah. I don't think anybody wants to read that script though. I'm okay with just having 5 waves.
Why do you think that?
Yeah.
Leo's in it.
Yeah, Leo DiCaprio is going to be in it. Obviously, Nicolas Cage and Samuel L. Jackson.
Well, I mean, this new movie, Don't Look Up.
Don't Look Up.
Yeah.
Great film.
He's in it, right?
So, yeah, he is.
And that's a perfect example. That's the Meteor story where,
right.
And I think it pokes fun at like incompetent leadership and everyone pretending to be an expert, and then disaster strikes and the world ends.
Right. Because even in the beginning of the pandemic, we had, like all the scientists saying stuff, and then the leader saying that it's not true. It's pretty much what this movie is about. You
got the armchair experts.
We don't have those right now, though. I mean, nobody is an armchair expert on COVID.
I got my armchair PhD this morning on the toilet.
Yeah. Well, according to my research, like you did your research on the toilet. Like, come on, like you didn't research this. You just Googled and like looked at the first 2 links that you found. Basically.
And then there's outrage. And you join some political party and nothing gets done.
Yeah.
Right.
And the way that Google works with this algorithm is just like whatever is like most popular in terms of clicks. Like it doesn't, based on someone with your search history. So it doesn't like discriminate it doesn't tell you care what's on the other side of that link as long as you're going to click on it. That doesn't mean that it's accurate because it's the first response. It just means that it's been clicked on by a lot of people like you.
Right.
Exactly.
You know what I was thinking though? So like we're talking about like making the story very interesting, adding some futuristic stuff. What if, the idea of a bio cyborg like right now we're wearing an Apple Watch and Jawbones, and this is pretty much like the cyborg. But in the future, the Apple Watch is going to be in your skin. So then technically, like if you're getting the vaccination, that you're getting the chip into your bloodstream. So a movie like that would be very interesting. I'd watch it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
What if you get a computer virus instead of an actual virus?
It's interesting.
Think about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that going to be like a new type of virus? Like, the next pandemic will be like a computer virus that would infect all of our
Right. Yeah, to get all these virus, what do you call it? Virus protection software.
Yeah.
The malware.
Malware.
Like they're even the metaverse. Like more and more, obviously, people are thinking that that's going to be the future. So they just released this glove, where it's a cool video. I'll send it in the link in the chat maybe. But so it's this glove that you wear, and it gives you feedback based on the environment that you're in the metaverse. So like you can play with objects, and it feels like that object. So like let's say you guys are in Philly and I'm in Boston. We could be in a room, and we can I can touch your hand that's wearing that.
Oh, shake hands.
Yeah, but I'm too stupid to understand if that's actually your hand or if that's the feeling of a hand, but it's you that's reacting to your gloves movements.
Oh, wow.
Probably what it is, because we're not that advanced yet. but yeah, it was interesting. So to go back to Alex's point, what if the metaverse becomes something like, you can hack the metaverse or put a virus in that world, kind of like video games, but like with virtual reality, but you corrupt that world. Does that make sense?
Think about it. Like even when Zoom, the pandemic started, everyone is on Zoom. Now you had people hacking into the Zoom meeting. Sure, you can hack into the metaverse.
Oh, probably.
Easy.
Yeah.
The future of spies and all that, and hacking. Hacking is more realistic, right?
Yeah.
The rivalry with the U.S. and China. Never a dull moment there.
Well, the more our lives become technology and just more digitized, like the more reliant we are on these apps, and the more vulnerable we are. Is the next war front going to be on Facebook? I mean, there already is a lot of war fronts on there right now, but that's just people like arguing with each other in the comments section. But in case of like this metaverse that they're moving towards, or not just Facebook, but any company, like, is that going to be the next war front? Yeah. But then, like, when people just like close their laptops and like all of a sudden the war's over. That's the end of the movie. They just close their laptop and like, yeah, I'm gonna go outside now.
My groceries.
Yeah.
It's basically
to go mow my lawn. Be right back.
No more warfare. It's basically Ready Player One.
That's pretty much. Yeah.
Right.
People are planning an assault on like, some country and be like, oh, well, I have to go like mow my lawn. Can we do this at like, 3:00?
I worked for 3 weeks on that country.
To go pick up my kids from school. Do you mind if we do it after when they go for bed at 8 p.m.?
The virtual world warfare.
It pops up in like a little calendar. Because that would happen. Like there would be, and there's going to be meetings about having meetings about this whole war front thing, and you're going to have Chad from accounting who's just like, sit there and like not do anything, and like, because
it'll be like
we all have a Chad from accounting in our jobs right now. So
I think I was talking to one of you guys about this a while ago, how like future jobs will be in the metaverse or whatever competition comes up. Like it doesn't have to be the metaverse. Like I know there's different companies that are trying to create that idea, so it'll be whatever Apple's version of the metaverse is. But that's where the future of jobs will be for like our children's generation. Yeah. Definitely our grandkids.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
According to futurists who are much smarter than us.
So is there a case at the moment right now saying that the way to protect us from viruses is to be in this metaverse? Is there a case for that or no?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because technically it kind of aligns to what is happening, because then you could be at home and still be at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. There's a comedian, I forget who it was, but I think it was Bill Burr, but he makes fun of how it's appealing to that, why the metaverse would be appealing or virtual reality would be appealing. Because if your life is amazing in this virtual world, and then you take off your helmet and your tired, old wife is there yelling at you, you don't want to deal with that. Put on the helmet. Let's do this.
Right.
So then you have that addiction to it, number one, and then you have that incentive to make it as awesome as possible. So like mowing your lawn can wait. I'm going to invest in this awesome world. And then, then we get into apocalyptic movie scenarios. But there's an addiction to it. And like, we're drifting off topic from the pandemic film scenario.
We'll get back to it.
We'll go back there.
Yeah. But the like, because there's Second Life, which has been around for like over 10 years, something like that. And there are a lot of people who it's like an addiction. Like they live on it. Their whole life, their whole identity is identified by this avatar. And like they would get married to people who they've never met, who live across the country. And then they would get legally married somehow.
Real.
And then meet their husband or wife who lives across the country from them.
And so are they married, like, so okay, they're married on the app, but then in real life, are they still, because then I think real life will be different from the web life.
No, apparently there was somebody who got married on Second Life.
What?
Like legally. I mean, you
That's
get married
so
by
weird.
Elvis in Vegas. So, I mean, like, some marriage laws somewhere are pretty lax.
It's like getting married in GTA 3
Somebody married a roller coaster.
multiplayer game. But yeah, like StarCraft or like Diablo, those games where you build these worlds. Like I've lost friends to that. It's so addictive.
Yep.
It's not my style of game personally, but like I've played like GTA for like months straight when I was a kid. It's not for me anymore, but I see the appeal to it for like a 12-year-old or an older guy who hates his life.
I mean, movies are also an escape to life. Like
Yeah.
when you're watching a movie, you want to immerse yourself in a life that is not present. What kind of movies and what kind of stories do you want to watch, which is entertaining or something that you find yourself in? So I think perhaps that's where the movie industry is not really doing its job in giving us that, experience or environment.
So here's a fun question. With regards to pandemic, what kind of story would you want to see in a movie? Like for me, I want to see a story on how like people in India handle the pandemic.
Right.
Like, let's be honest, we're pretty privileged living in Canada during the pandemic. It's not perfect by any means. How does someone in a third world handle like the worst case of the pandemic disaster?
Right. Yeah, because those places, a lot of the things that, here in the West we were saying, which is like stay indoors, work from home, wash your hands. Here you go to your room. Like, you want to punish a kid, you tell a kid, hey, go to your room. Meanwhile, in India and Africa,
They
some
live
parts
hand to
of
mouth.
India and some parts of Africa,
Yeah.
not everyone is privileged enough to have their own room.
Well, these like narrow streets and alleyways in a lot of these cities, like they're so tightly congested. Like they don't have like storage for food. They can't live in their house, in their house without leaving for 2 weeks or however long a lockdown would be. They have to go out to the market to get food. They have to interact with other people to live their life. Yeah, and it's like they have no choice, and by us experiencing like the lives through other people, we I think it kind of breaks us out of our privileged way of looking at the pandemic. Like we're arguing about a lot of stuff that a lot of people wish they could argue about in terms of a pandemic. Like, should I wear a mask? Should I not wear a mask? The fact that I can go to a soccer game and, like stand 6 feet apart from somebody and actually enjoy a sport without worrying about my health. The fact that we actually have that debate or we're at a point where we could have that debate. I mean, that says a lot, whereas a lot of countries don't have that ability.
Yeah. Some political commentator was saying how in India, so in order to have a better chance at completely getting rid of this pandemic, everyone has to take the shot. Like 100% of the world's population, hypothetically speaking, will take a COVID vaccine. But in India, the vast majority of the people that live there, they don't know where their next drink of water will come from or the next meal will come from. So they're not thinking about a vaccine. Like they're just trying to survive the day to day, like things that we can't even imagine, you know, or like we can, but it's only just empathy. We can't put ourselves, we haven't lived that, you know.
Yeah, you also have religious, cultural norms and beliefs where, like, you know, a movie came out a while ago and it was 666, and I remember our whole family went to our church to watch it on a small TV screen. I think the church could sit about 150 people, and we had a small color TV, and we all, you know, watched 666. And deep down in our brain, it's still ingrained in the fact that a computer is going to come and imprint Satan's whatever in our minds, whatever. And so even with the vaccination, there are a lot of people who believe that it has 666 embedded in it somewhere. And even when you watch 666, the movie had certain things where if you had the number, you could go certain places. Now, if you have the vaccination, you can go to the grocery store. It's very similar.
These superstitions.
So to most people, it's like, I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah, I blame Bill Gates personally.
I think a lot of people find, you know, the similarities in that movie and what we're living with now, and they're like, you know, it's true. So last week, a family here in Toronto, the father died, the mom had to be rushed to the hospital, and then when they came out to, you know, investigate what happened, they believe in a 666. So the father didn't take it. The son, you know, the whole family hasn't taken the vaccination, and they're, you know, praying, hoping that something is going to happen, but end up losing their father.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Power of superstition.
Yeah.
Right.
You were going to say something, Alex?
Yeah, it was a bit of a change of subject.
Go ahead.
Bit abrupt from that. But like, because I was thinking, like, so if our media is typically used as a way to allow us to experience other people's lives or other experiences through, you know, historically we have books, stories, tales, movies, and you know, like the next big medium that we have coming out is like going to be this metaverse. Do you think that we would actually simulate a pandemic in a metaverse to experience, or like even like things like a zombie outbreak or alien invasion or some kind of like catastrophic event in a metaverse as that new way to kind of scratch that itch? Because Hollywood movies don't do it for us anymore. We have to kind of take it to the next level where our avatar gets COVID.
I agree. Like, I agree with that idea. I think it would be very informative because, in a way, like if you think about it, all these are mediums to educate or to inform. Dream is nature's way of educating us. We, like nowadays, we have dreams about falling, which has nothing to do, like, we live in skyscrapers and you never hear people falling. But back in our prehistoric era, our forefathers used to fall off cliffs. So it's embedded in our minds that when we dream, which we do dream about falling now, it's still like, you know, a way of us connecting with our past. So I think the metaverse being a way to assimilate stuff like pandemics would be actually very amazing. I think we're onto something with this.
Yeah, or like dreams with, to go back to your dream thought, dreams of someone chasing us. It's like predators chasing us, prehistoric times, right? There's no tigers coming after us now. It's just traffic, or we're stuck doing paperwork all day. but
The vaccination passport police would be chasing us. That's your natural predator in 2022.
Right.
Put your mask on.
Exactly. But no, that's an interesting idea, Alex. With I think in general, we're designed to go towards comfort. So the metaverse will be like, how can we create as much pleasure as possible? But I think like more intellectual minded folks, and like higher level people in authority, they will use the metaverse to simulate scenarios where they can look at society and make decisions or plan for things or things of that nature. So I think it'll have that purpose as well. Like the metaverse at this stage is like it's a baby. We don't know where it'll go.
Yeah.
It's just an infant. It's just learning how to crawl. Even if you look at like what they design now, like it's okay. Like even virtual VR it's okay, but it's still like a little clunky. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not there. It's not there yet.
I think for some things, like some disasters, I don't really think we'd act them out in the metaverse because they kind of suck, like a pandemic. But I think like for a lot of us, we have like this unscratchable itch that we all want to know what it would be like to actually ride out a zombie outbreak and actually like, be held up in something and kind of like have to fight them off periodically and go for supplies. That would be something that would be simulated in a metaverse with the whole cast of people.
Definitely.
Or even like those, the ones where it's like 20 years later, like the movie takes place like 20 years after some kind of like catastrophic thing that happened. And it's like you have like these bands of people and then you have like these desolate cities, everything's overgrown and wild dogs are running rampant and stuff like that. And people are trying to like survive and fight each other. Stuff like that. I could see that being in the metaverse. Alien invasions, those are always classic.
Oh yeah. Different like sophisticated scenarios where we can like try to experience that. Maybe you're in the body of someone in India trying to figure out how to survive the farming apocalypse.
Oh yeah, even going back inside, that'd be interesting. Yeah, like the Wild West. You have a small town in the Wild West, and you just run a bar.
You're in someone's shoes, living someone. Yeah. I mean, in a way, like so, if I'm playing a basketball game where I'm LeBron, you know how you have the attributes of LeBron. So he can shoot like this, he can do this, he can do that. But then when you change a person, you can't do those things.
Yeah.
So in a way, you go into someone's life in India and it's like, okay, so here are your limitations. You're living in a room with your mom and dad. How do you isolate yourself and stuff like that? I don't know.
Oh, so kind of like experiencing what it would be like to be an Indian person during the pandemic.
Right.
That'd be interesting, yeah. Like to actually know.
It'd be awesome.
It'd be a really interesting way to kind of like that whole empathy thing, right? Like, is that something that you would actually put in? Actually, that'd be an interesting idea.
It's the ultimate like psychedelic experience, right? It's like
it is.
You pick a life to experience through virtual reality, and then you have the safety net of knowing, okay, this is virtual reality. I'm not going to die.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
There's a book about this, about different flow states. It's called
cutting in here, but post-production, editing kind of stuff. That book is Stealing Fire by Stephen Kotler.
Basically, it's saying how like different flow states, like bungee jumping, it's dangerous. You can die, but if you create environments like iFly, where in like a safe room, you could experience skydiving, and you won't die. 100%, you'll be fine, unless there's like a 1 in a billion chance that there's a malfunction. Or IMAX. When IMAX came along in the early 1950s, somewhere there was a train that we put on the glasses, and the train came out of the screen, and everyone in the theater freaked out and like ran out. But the people who created IMAX were saying, no, like it's fine. It's not a real train. It's just an optical illusion, right? So like human beings aren't like, we need that comfort in the back of our head, but we still crave that thrill. So I wonder if the metaverse will be a way you could actually pay money to be someone. You could be LeBron James for 2 hours and feel what it's like to jump high.
Yeah, or you have somebody who like, like just to understand what it's like to even be a person of another race that's not yours, and like walk in their shoes, or somebody at a different income class level. Like obviously, I mean, most people can imagine what it's like to be rich, but for middle class and upper class people, you can't really imagine what it's like to be poor. It's almost unfathomable for you, even in your own city. What is it like to be somebody in that income class in your own city where you walk the same streets that you do realistically in the real world, but in the metaverse, you're walking the streets of Philadelphia, for example, and you're walking the streets and somebody who is, who has hardship and struggles, and you can't go into Starbucks and buy a $5 coffee, even though it's only $5. You can't even buy any coffee.
Or like a situation where you have a rent due and your child is sick and you have to buy groceries.
Yeah. Damn. Well, that's a puzzle that has to be solved every day by people, right? Like,
yeah.
Like there was one movie Made that came out, really good. It was like just like a limited series on Netflix called Made, and it's about this woman who leaves, a domestic abuse situation with her child, and it does like a really powerful job, well acted too. Definitely highly recommended. But just what she goes through, just trying to like just keep her head above water, or let alone just have a roof over her head, and give her child basic nourishment, like even that is like a conquest in and of itself, let alone trying to get the kid registered for school. So through movies and books, we experience that all the time, and that's a huge genre if you think about it. Like you read these biographies about people who live unfathomable lives and of struggle, but there are millions of people like them who go through the same thing. Being somebody who's like a refugee trying to flee to Europe from the Middle East, that would be an interesting metaverse.
So to jump on that thought, so naturally, like we experience different lives through media, like you said, books, radio, whatever, Hollywood for the past however many decades. So the metaverse is the next natural step where we experience a different life, right?
I think so, yeah.
Maybe you download a story of someone in India going through the pandemic, and you do that for 2 hours, and you come back and it's like, holy crap, back to my life now.
Yeah.
Right. I can see some really useful cases where, so then when we're designing stuff, we can live the life of the people that we're designing for.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like most of the times, like even the decision that came as in stay indoors came from the West, and the West didn't really put in, someone in Africa or India would not have room to isolate.
Yeah.
And most of the time, it's like, it's always the ideas come from the West and then everyone adopts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, even just like designing products, like just knowing your audience, having the ability to empathize with people.
Or even, some genius artist designs something, you can like take a peek into his brain, like see where he's coming from. Maybe it's weird for you, but maybe it's like, holy shit, like I didn't think about it that way. This guy's a phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever medium we like, whether it's through the metaverse or it's soon to come, movies, books, or anything else that you like to enjoy, or podcast, even for that matter. Like we all experience, it gives us the ability to kind of, take our shoes off and put on somebody else's. That's ultimately what they do, and that's ultimately what myths have always done in a particular sense. And realistically, movies are really just our myths of today, just in 4K with popcorn. And from those myths, we get a lot of superstitions and ideas about what our society is, what it means to us. And it's kind of interesting how a lot of these myths that tend to evolve as new events unfold.
So myths are very important. During the pandemic, there was this character that came from Japan where people were drawing these images and placing it on their windows. And they're called Amabi, Mabie. And it's pretty much a monster or a spirit. And it comes from the yokai. Usually what it does is it's a way of bringing people's fear out and from their subconscious mind. And so it was very interesting how people were able to bring awareness to the pandemic by just seeing it on windows, and it was a way to get people to be like, okay, let's do something about this pandemic. And I think that's very effective.
Yeah, I think myths are fascinating, right? It's in every culture. Like the Greeks had, like every Greek god was a myth, right? And then it goes through generation to generation.
Like even today we have a lot of superstitions ourselves, right? Like this is something that still exists in Japanese culture. And even whenever other disasters have happened, there's like these superstitions or cultural nuances that kind of stem from it or are created that exist within that particular city. So even in like Fukushima, where you had this massive tsunami hit back in 2011, there were a lot of people whose lives just ended there right on the spot. And since then, in the 10 years since then, you have these reports of cab drivers who, they would pick somebody up on the side of the road and they would just take them to the address that they asked for. And then along the way, the person in their backseat would just disappear as they get closer to their destination. So it's like they're using the cabs in the city to get taken home. And it's like how this city has kind of healed itself, like from a mentally cultural perspective, how they're coping about trying to, bring back all these lost souls to where they find home and solace and comfort. And it's so interesting how they, like with all these disasters and myths and pandemics, like a lot of them are born from these tears in our cultural fabric.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, myths have always played a role in that, like floods.
Yeah.
Right. Ancient times, we couldn't explain floods, so we stopped believing in whatever god we believed in, and we moved on to the next god. Because, well, in the meantime, we would move from the place that had floods or volcanoes, But I think myths go back to, are you guys familiar with Joseph Campbell?
Yeah.
He's a professor of mythology. He did the hero's journey archetype, essentially, like with Star Wars. Like, we start off kind of inexperienced about life and naive, and then we go out and then we learn lessons. We try again, maybe we fail, but then we come back full circle and we learn the ultimate lessons of, everything works out in the end, and we feel that existential reward at the end of it. So with pandemic films, we need that insight into the hero's journey of dealing with a pandemic. And I think we're still trying to figure it out in real life, so we might not have the answer in a film.
So if our pandemic right now is the hero's journey,
mm-hmm.
is all these like subsequent lockdowns and friction in society, everyone at each other's throats, is that us just like failing, trying to figure out what works? How do we actually become better as a collective species and as a group? So we can actually move past this.
Because, it starts with the hero could probably be someone who doesn't believe in vaccination, masks, social distance, and then over time things start adding up, and then he becomes the hero. Yeah,
lose a family member, something terrible.
Right.
Yeah, but there are also people like they were very, they understood like the science and the reason behind everything, and were pro-mask, pro-social distancing, and during the pandemic they become disenfranchised with everything, and now they're on the other side of the fence. So it's like.
Yeah,
we have no idea where we'll end up.
Right.
For sure. I think the hero's journey it's subjective to some extent, right? Like we're all trying to learn our lessons while dealing with the greater cultural narratives, and there's different cultural narratives, and then obviously technology affects us from that perspective.
Yeah, and then to add to that, I was about to say something similar, where we don't know it all. We're all trying to figure it out. As new information comes in, new messages comes, and then we adapt, learn, and then we go from there. And I think it's because people are acting like if they know everything, and that's where we are at now.
Yeah, and it's only been, I think we're now approaching 2 years, at least in North America.
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, it feels like it's been like 6 years of this thing, but the Spanish flu lasted 2 years, from my understanding. So hopefully we're getting close,
But if you look at life here in the West, I think what it is like it's just fear of the unknown. Like we've enjoyed an extreme comfort of not really like like we did. Yeah, sure. There's stuff we don't know. Not everybody knows everything. Like, maybe you don't know how to make creme brulee, but that's okay because you're not going to die from that. But when it comes to the pandemic, like it's like this thing that we just don't know, and you kind of double down on the stuff that has already gotten you through life so far, or you kind of gravitate towards cultures that or groups of people who either make sense to you, whatever your perspective is, or that you've gravitated to in the past, and they tend to support you, and you kind of have like this group think going on. Everybody doesn't really know what the way through it is because we've never dealt with a pandemic on this true global scale, where you have a variant start off in South Africa, and with a matter of weeks you have it's just this huge surge in North America and Europe and Japan and everywhere else around the world. Yeah, so what starts in one country will eventually be in every country in like 2 weeks.
In a way, it's basically like we're all alike. We're all the same. Like I remember back when we were kids, you have these kid games, like like I don't know what they're called, but kids like they clap and then they sing. Call the doctor, quick, doctor, shall I die? No, my darling, you know that, like stuff like that. And then you're like, wait, this is in English, and in Ghana you're not. So then where does it come from? And you're like, oh, because there's a kid in. This is before even like cable TVs and stuff, where a kid would fly from Brooklyn to Ghana, teach his friends something, fly from Ghana back to Brooklyn, and then teach his friends in Brooklyn stuff that he learned from, and we're all connected. So it's like all these things that we learn from each other.
Yeah.
We're more connected nowadays, right?
Yeah, and then this pandemic is showing us we're even way connected than we thought we were. You sneeze, I get a cold in South Africa.
It's a butterfly effect. Butterfly halfway around the world flaps its wings. It causes a hurricane halfway around the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's all this is. It's a giant butterfly effect everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I blame the bat.
It was a pangolin. Wasn't it a pangolin? I thought it was a pangolin.
Who knows?
You know what it was? According to South Park, it was Stan's dad. It's all his fault.
All right, so final thoughts. I'll go first. I think we need movies, pandemic or otherwise, that are a mirror to our human absurdity. So similar to a movie that we talked about earlier, Don't Look Up, where it shows the stupidity of humans, where you got the experts, the armchair experts weighing in on stuff that nobody knows about. You got the incompetent leadership, just things that show the absurdity of whatever situation is out there and gives us insights into how to handle it as humbly as possible.
I'd like to see, Hollywood do its job, and I think at this moment I am giving up on Hollywood, so I'm going to put my hope on the metaverse. Hopefully metaverse will solve this problem for us, where we'll be able to immerse ourselves in a scenario where we can have, the pandemic with lessons that can teach us what to do and what not to do.
Yeah, I kind of tend to agree. I think in some respects, new media will kind of usher in new ways of looking at things, and that probably will change parts of our society for the better and for the worst by having the ability to actually walk a mile in someone else's shoes. I think it'll demonstrate to us that we realistically don't have all the answers, and that we don't really know what it's like to be another person, who is different from you in whatever regard, different country, different income class, different race, different gender. We don't have all the answers, and I think that's really, I think what we do need, and kind of what Hollywood or media or whatever our myths are or end up evolving to be, I think that they need to really teach us that empathy that we clearly lack today.
Beauty. All right, that's it for this week, folks. Follow us on your favorite social media and entertainment service, And remember, kids, never trust anybody who drives with a mask on.
Yeah, I don't know why you would. Like, why would you drive with a mask? Unless you're an Uber driver who just forgot to take it off. Why
Put that
would
in
you,
your Hollywood film.
like, why would you drive with a mask on? You ever
Makes
seen
sense.
that? Somebody's alone in their Buick and they're like driving with a mask on. There's no, like, you're in a metal cocoon. Like, nothing's gonna get
By
to you.
yourself.
Yeah, it's like you're driving with earphones on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why? You have car speakers for that. Oh man, people. Yeah, that's why we have a pandemic. Okay, that's it. That's a wrap.